Welcome. Really good to be with you today. Now, you lead one of our Kairos communities with a few other people, Resurrection Bikes. And so, love to just hear how things have been going with Res Bikes over lockdown. What have you been up to? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's been interesting times. So our normal team is about 35 people spread across different days. We've had to cut that back to a skeleton team of about a dozen people. And then during the full lockdown that we've just had, we cut that back even further, and there are just a few individuals going in. Yeah, and we're missing doing our special events as well, where we fix bikes for people for free in the hall and stuff like that. That's just been impossible
Yeah,
during COVID, but hopefully we'll be able to do some of that again before too long.
fantastic. Now, as well as running Res Bikes, I know you're very involved in a few other things, particularly Harrogate Cycle Action Group. Love you to tell us a little bit more about that this morning.
Yeah, I got involved a few years ago when the group was set up, just because we don't really have any cycle infrastructure worth talking about in Harrogate, and having cycled all my life, commuted in London when I was doing jobs down there and things like that by bike, I've seen some of the what is possible, and it's good for everyone, whether you ride a bike or not. And so I've been really wanting to see some of that in Harrogate, and this group is part of trying to inch us in that direction. So it's good to have been part of that. And we've
Great.
been getting very active recently with government funding streams coming in through COVID and the like. We've got some exciting schemes coming up for Harrogate, which is a good start.
Yes, and we will have all seen bits of that on social media and in the local news and things like that. I think it's fair to say there's a conversation going on around that. And I've noticed often you're popping up on bits of social media to defend changes, to advocate changes. It's fantastic. I'd love to hear from you why you're so passionate about sustainable transport in Harrogate, and why it's an outworking of your faith and your mission to support those things.
Well, I guess cycling is something I love because I've always done it, but the link from that to sustainable transport and campaigning is kind of, there are several legs to it. I mean, one is the environmental climate change thing. In other parts of the world, people are having their habitats written off through extreme weather or just local climate change, meaning their land is no longer usable for the way they used to live. So that's happening today, and even though we may not see it on our doorsteps in that way, everything we can do towards reducing our carbon impact is obviously reducing those effects elsewhere in the world. The other is around health. We have a hideously inactive society now, so lots of different strands to it. I mean, there's transport poverty. Not everyone can afford a car or wants to run a car. There's the pollution aspect. They reckon now that 1 in 5 premature deaths in the West is caused by air pollution.
Wow.
And so lots of reasons why we can't go on the way we were, and we need to change. And cycling's my personal passion anyway. So when I link these things together, it's not really hard to get passionate about wanting to see a better way of doing things that actually helps an awful lot of people.
I love that phrase, a better way of doing things. It sounds like you've discovered something that both links your passion and God's call for justice. It sounds. How are the ways in which people who are part of Kairos could support change or even make changes ourselves?
Well, in kind of the cycling arena, the biggest thing we need is good infrastructure that makes cycling and walking, because they go hand in hand. And when you've got good cycle infrastructure, walking becomes more pleasant too. They're not really options that are truly available to people who aren't confident cyclists like myself. It can be pretty dangerous out there in the traffic. And so whilst we might be saying to people, use your car less, we're not really giving them much of an alternative. And we mustn't forget public transport as well. So it's probably worth just saying a little bit about some of the schemes that are coming in Harrogate and what they do and why it's important. And one set of schemes are the kind of low traffic neighbourhoods like Beech Grove, Lancaster Road. And whilst the term low traffic neighbourhood might be new, it's not a new concept. So we've got Hutton Gate in St George's area, which is bollarded off. We've got Rossett Drive, which bollards off. And the aim of these is really to stop through traffic. So what you end up is a neighbourhood with much lower traffic levels. It discourages people just jumping in a car and doing a short journey when, you know, a 20-minute walk would do it.
And those little bits of safe space are really helpful. I remember my family, we learned to ride, my kids, we learned to ride bikes on the bollards on Rossett Walk because it was safe.
Absolutely. And it's the perception of safety that's important, not the accident statistics. If people don't want to ride their bike because they feel unsafe or because the traffic's so close that on a wet day they get drowned in water, then they're not going to. So low traffic neighbourhoods is a kind of an important element towards that. But that only covers bits of the town, and you've still got the bigger roads that you need to make a route join up, which you're not going to bollard off. So you need to do something else, and that's where the kind of the cycle lane infrastructure comes in. And to be safe, that needs to be good widths. It needs to be curb separated. So, cars can't, veer into it. People can't park on it, that kind of stuff. So we need schemes like that. We need them to join up. They're not all perfect by any means, and there's much more needed. But those are the sort of things that are actually going to enable people to make the choice to walk or cycle and leave their car at home.
And a lot of these schemes are generating a little bit of conversation and debate locally. What's the best way to support some of these changes?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is to show that support. So where there are conversations that the press are putting out on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media, or where there are consultations, they need to hear the supporting response. I understand that people have concerns, but we need to make sure that the debate is open, honest, and grown up, and that's where I think everyone can contribute.
And do you have any tips on steps we could take to start changing behaviour, maybe to wean ourselves off our reliance on cars, even though we are, we're a church that's quite dispersed as people live in all sorts of different places. What can we do to go on a journey with this whole area?
Well, we tried to reinvent our lifestyle a bit when I retired. The principle was we wanted to be able to minimise our use of the car, sticking to the transport kind of theme of things here. And so we wanted to try and to be able to do all of our shopping locally, which means doing more shopping trips and smaller amounts if we're not going to use the car, rather than going to the supermarket every week or two or whatever and filling it up. Let's support the local businesses as well, which is good for the town rather than the mega businesses, where much more difficult during lockdown, where you just don't want to do more shopping trips than you can help, and it forces you back to that big trip at the supermarket. But that's the kind of thing we've been trying to do, and more recently made a cargo bike so I can do the bigger trips as well.
Brilliant. Will those be on sale at Res Bikes at some point?
Well, not through Res Bikes. That's a John Rowe hobby, but yes, they'll be on sale. So if anybody would like one, come talk to me.
Last question is, how can we be praying for Res Bikes, for you, for these kind of changes?
Well, Res Bikes, I think it's safety for the team, being able to keep up with demand again once we open the doors to sales. For the campaigning stuff, very much kind of, I think, about transparency of the debate. People will have genuine concerns about these schemes, but let's differentiate that from the hype and the fake news and have kind of grown up discussion. So yeah, so those would be the kind of key issues for me.
Brilliant, thank you.
And two specific things I think we can ask people to do. there are 2 consultations out there at the moment, and there's going to be more coming. One is the council consultation on Station Gateway, which I'd encourage everybody to search out and find. It's on the North Yorkshire website. It comes up in Google very easily. And the other one is the Harrogate Advertiser consultation.
So respond to surveys when you come across them. And if you don't have one already, get a bike and perhaps get in touch with you, John, and
we can certainly help people with that.
Sort you out.
Indeed, we've got a lot of very nice bikes.
Brilliant, good. Well, thanks so much. Fascinating conversation and really helpful. Yeah, thanks, John.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.